In this video, I'll show you how you can automate your newsletter on n8n without having to actually look for any news whatsoever. So that for less than 50 cents, you can create newsletters like this one here automatically once a week. And by the way, to make it even easier for you, I'm going to give you access to this template in the description down below. Simply download the template, import it into your workflow, and tweak it as you wish, so that you can have your newsletter being sent out to all of your subscribers without you having to ever lift a single finger. So without further ado, let's get right into it. Alright, so I've just opened up my new n8n account. As you can see, the automation looks like it's complex, but trust me, it's really quite simple. It gets divided to three main components. The first part is choosing the top news, second part is researching the top news, and the third part is writing the actual newsletter. Cool, so if we dive a little bit deeper, in the first part which says choosing top news, the goal here is pretty obvious. It's just to be able to find the 4 or 5 most important news of the past week or however many days you want to define inside your niche. So you just want to find out exactly what's most important for you to let your subscribers know, right? Because there's probably going to be 40, 50, 100 different things that happen inside your industry. You just want to focus on the 4, 5, 6 that's most relevant to your subscribers. So there's definitely going to be many ways that you can choose the top news, but the way that I think is most efficient is if you just use or aggregate other people's newsletters. Because think of it this way, right? If someone else has a newsletter, they're already going through the process of grabbing 1,000 news points and then filtering it down to the 2 or 3 most important news, and then they send that to their subscribers, right? So they've already done that initial choosing top news or filtering process. So if you were to aggregate 5 or 6 different newsletters, you're basically aggregating 5 or 6 different viewpoints on what the most important news is. So you've already gone through one iteration of filtering. So it's likely that the news that you're going to have is going to be both higher quality and also a little bit easier to accumulate. So for the purpose of this workflow, I decided that it's easiest if I just aggregate other people's newsletters. And achieving this is actually quite simple in practice. First, obviously what you'd want to do is you want to find the newsletters that you want to track and repurpose in order to create your own newsletter. So to do this, you just open a new Google search and you search up for top newsletters in now whatever niche you're in. So I'm in the AI niche, I'm going to search up top newsletters in AI. And if I just search that, you see that there's going to be a couple of, articles, links that are going to direct me towards the top newsletters in AI. So if I, for example, press this one, I can see that there's 17 top newsletters in AI, like The Rundown, Mindstream, which I'm actually subscribed to both of them, AI Breakfast, so on and so forth. Then you can just click on these one by one and subscribe to them. And obviously what's going to happen once you sign up to these newsletters is they're going to be sending you editions of their newsletter every couple of days or weeks, depending on how frequently they send it out. And every time they send it out, your newsletter bot is going to grab that and use it in order to create your own newsletter. So once you subscribe to the top newsletters in your niche, you want to come back to the workflow. So if I quickly just go over what's actually happening here, you can see that first I have a get messages node inside my workflow. So what this Gmail node actually does is it just grabs the X last messages inside my Gmail. So if I put this at a limit of 20, and if I don't put any filters, it's going to grab the last 20 emails that were sent to my Gmail account. So obviously you wouldn't want to just grab all the last 10 or 20 emails. We want to only grab the emails that came from the newsletters that we're trying to track. So what you want to do is you want to look at this section that says filters, and inside the search section, you want to pop in the newsletters that you want to track. And formatting this is actually quite important because Gmail wants you to format it in a certain way. What you want to do is you want to say or from and then email, whatever address it is. And then you have to say or from email address. And you just continuously do that for all of the newsletters that you want to track. Just make sure that you don't put any spaces between the from and the email address, and you put this or in the middle, and you also have this sort of formatting for the email address as well. So once you've done that, you can come back from here and you can see that the second filter that I've put in terms of the emails that I want to receive is a received after filter. The reason why I have this received after filter is because I don't want to look at newsletters that were sent to me 3 weeks ago, because obviously that's going to be old news. I want to look at new news, right? And you would define this however you want, depending on, the frequency of the newsletters that you want to send out. So I've created a JSON formula here that's basically just going to grab all the news that have been received after 3 days ago. So today's the 30th of Jan, as you can see, this is the 27th of Jan onwards. So anything from 3 days ago onwards is what we're going to track. Now, if you want to make this 7 days ago, all you have to do is change the 3 to 7. If you want to make it 10 days ago, change it to 10. If you want to change it to 11 days ago, you can do that. But I find that 3 days ago is pretty good, because likely if you're looking at news that's been sent to you 7 days ago, that's also news from 7 days before that. So you're looking at 2 weeks ago. If you scrape the newsletters that have been sent to you within the last 3 days, you're likely going to get news that's from the last week. So I would recommend keeping this the same as 3 days. And then you just want to define a limit as to how many emails you actually want to receive. And this just depends on how many email addresses you decided to track. I find that putting a limit of 10 is good enough. All right, so I'm just going to quickly run the Gmail node to show you exactly what's going on here. So if I click that and open this up, you can see, boom, there we go. So the output that the Gmail node is going to give me is 10 items, and these 10 items are each going to be one email that's been sent to me, because I put a limit of 10, right? So it's a massive file, because I've turned off simplify, and you definitely should turn off simplify as well, because if you don't turn off simplify, it's only going to show you a snippet of the actual email. It's not going to show you the actual email content. So you want to turn off simplify, exactly like I have, and then you will receive this massive document. So the next step, obviously, is for you to extract the actual news points from this information, right? Because obviously at the moment, this node has a lot of noise in it. Noise being just information that's not really important, and you want to get rid of that information and only pass on to the next nodes what's actually important. So what I've done is I've created an OpenAI module that's going to go through each of these 10 emails one by one and extract the news from them. So I'm just going to run this quickly to show you how it works.
One eternity later.
And this is going to take some time, because it's going to run OpenAI 10 separate times. And the reason why I chose to do it as 10 separate times as opposed to just aggregating all the emails into one and then passing it through OpenAI once is because I found that, especially with GPT-4o mini and the cheaper models, if you have so much information, it's likely that the AI is actually going to miss out on the actual news points, and it's going to only choose 5 or 6 or 10 out of maybe 50 news points. So what I found works best is if you actually send the whole email through one by one and run the OpenAI module once for every email that actually comes through. So it's going to take some time, but while this is running, I'll just quickly show you guys the prompt that I've used. So you work for This Week in AI, which is one of the most popular AI newsletters in the world. The tactic your team uses for creating newsletters is to extract the hottest news from popular newsletters. So I've just explained the sort of context, and I've given it a role. And then you are given the scraped text from multiple newsletters below. Your job is to reformat and clean the information without losing any info. You must extract each news point mentioned along with details of it underneath. Don't miss out on any news points. And I've just told it what format to follow in terms of the output that it gives me. And then I have provided it with, there we go, each of the emails. So as you can see, this is the first time the module is going to be run. You can see that's the first email. That's the second time the module is going to be run. It's got the second email in it, third, fourth, fifth, and so on and so forth. All right, so if we take a look at the output that it's giving me now, you can see that we have the response from the 10 different times the model was run. As you can see, each of these responses have the top news in the format that I requested. So as you can see, that's the first email that was sort of processed. As you can see, it has news number 1, debunking AI myths, and then news number 2, there we go, 2, whatever, and so on and so forth. And it's going to do the same thing for 10 emails. All right, so basically what we've done till now is grab the last 10 emails that came from the newsletters and just extract all the news from them and remove all the unnecessary BS data that we don't need. Cool, so if we come back to the workflow, you can see that now, as I said, we have the news extracted from those emails. Then I've just aggregated them into one item as opposed to 10 separate items, so we can pass it on to the next OpenAI node. Now in the next OpenAI node, what I've done is I've told the AI to just choose the top 5 most important news, because obviously, as you saw, we had maybe, let's say, 5 news points inside each of the last 10 emails that were sent. So that's 50 news points we have till now. And some of them are also going to be duplicates, because if there is one news in your space, it's likely that multiple newsletters are going to talk about that same news, especially if it's important. So I defined an OpenAI node that's going to grab all of those news points and just choose the top 5 most important news points so that you can send that to your subscribers. Let me just quickly run this aggregate node as well. So it looks, as you can see, it just grabs the 10 items and turns it into one item. So that's all of the news that came from the newsletters. There we go. And then in this node, as I said, we just want to choose the top 5. So if we take a quick look at the prompt, you can see that I said, you are part of the This Week in AI's newsletter team, which is one of the best AI newsletters in the world. You're given the top news in the past 7 days in AI. You must filter the news and choose only the top 5 points that is most revolutionary and important. Now, you can change the prompt to whatever you think is fitted for your industry and your use case. This is just one that I use for myself. So I just said your target audience is going to be non-technical AI enthusiasts, so make sure that the news you choose is most relevant to them. And then I told it exactly how I want the information to be extracted and presented to me, and then I provided it with all of these news points. And in terms of the model I use GPT-4o this time because we're not running the AI 10 times, and it's also kind of important to have a model that's a bit more sophisticated because this step is very important in determining whether the news that you send to your subscribers is going to be actually relevant and important, or it's just going to be BS news. Cool. So let's just try and run this and see what happens. This one should be a bit quicker comparatively. Boom, there we go. So now what we should have is just the top 5 news. As you can see, news number 1. Let me maybe make this a bit bigger. Pull this one there, pull this one there. News number 2, the potential impact of operator in business functions. As you guys know, obviously operators, OpenAI's new AI agentic computer use model. It's pretty cool, check it out. It's revolutionary, I would say. And then we obviously just have the other news, so not very important. Let's move on. Actually, if I quickly just go back in here and I want to show you something. So till now, what you've done is you've aggregated the top 5 news points from other people's newsletters. And if you have a closer look here, you can see that there's already pretty much enough detail inside each of these news points for you to be able to send it to your subscribers because other people have already done the work to go and research and find details for those news. So technically, if you wanted to make a little bit of a shortcut, you could just create an OpenAI node that just rewrites that same information in different words so that you can repurpose it and send it to your audience without having to research more. So if you guys wanted to do this, I put a quick prompt here for you as well. You're part of a team that builds newsletters. The researcher has gathered some news for you. Your job is to reword it with the following guidelines. Now, these guidelines are obviously going to depend on how you want your newsletter to sound. For my newsletter, I like to keep it at a year 3 reading level because I've found that people engage better with content that's written in simple words as opposed to using big technical words that no one knows about. I told it to be enthusiastic and futuristic because obviously we're in AI, and I told it to spark curiosity and also to maintain all the important information from the research. So it doesn't, throw out a bunch of valuable information that we have extracted from other people's newsletters. Cool. And then I've just given it an example of one of my own newsletters that I posted a couple of weeks ago, I guess on LinkedIn. And I just told it to follow this sort of template. And then I gave it the actual news at the bottom. There we go. So news 1, news 2, news 3, news 4, news 5. So if I were to run this, I can show you guys what would come out from it. There we go. So news 1, OpenAI launches operator AI agent, and then it's just obviously reworded it, news 2, news 3, news 4, news 5. So technically what you could do is if you wanted to have a quick shortcut, just use this and send this directly to your subscribers as opposed to do what I've defined above. Now, what I've done above is definitely going to be the harder, more expensive way to do this, but it might be worthwhile if you guys want to keep the content that you post fully unique and obviously add a little bit of authenticity to your newsletter. So if we take a closer look, what I've done is I've built a research agent that has access to Perplexity. Now, I'm not sure if you guys know what Perplexity is. Perplexity is just a tool that basically allows you to search things online, similar to how ChatGPT search works, right? So let's say, for example, if I wanted to search up what happened with DeepSeek R1, you can see that Perplexity is going to go and search up the web and summarize the information that it finds, and it's also going to give me some relevant links. Now, this is super valuable when you want to create a research agent, because yes, you could technically build a Google scraper that's going to go and scrape different websites and try and grab all that information and summarize it. But why would you when you can get Perplexity to do all the heavy lifting for you and just give you the summarization or the important information? So what I did, as I said, is I just built a tool connected to the research agent, which is just the Perplexity tool. And if you guys don't know what a tool is just something that the agent or the AI agent can call on in order to complete its workflow or complete the task that's given to it. So if we take a closer look at the research agent that I built a tools agent. Tools agents are recommended by n8n. If you guys want to build an AI agent that's going to use multiple tools. So I just built a tools agent, and then I said in terms of the user message, below is the hottest news for this week in AI, I guess, and then just gave it the actual news points. There we go. So this is the extraction from the previous node that chose the top 5 news. And then I just defined a system message. And if we open up the system message, boom, there we go. You can see that I've defined a role, an identity, primary goals, context, background info, specific instructions, tools, step-by-step workflow, desired output, and also just general instructions for the desired output underneath it as well. So if you guys want to learn how to write effective system messages for AI agents on n8n, I recently made a cool video that's also got a template that you can follow, and it's super useful. So go and check it out. Now if we come back to the workflow, that was the system message. And then I just told it to return the intermediate steps just so I can check and understand exactly what's going on. And then I connected it to an OpenAI chat model. So the model that I chose for this was GPT-4o. It's probably the perfect balance between accuracy and pricing. You can go with O1 if you really wanted to, but I would say considering the scope of this project, there's not a lot of planning and reasoning that goes into it. So GPT-4o should do more than enough. And then I just connected it to a Perplexity module. And as I said, the Perplexity module is just a way for you to search up things on Google and get the summarized answer come back to you, as opposed to having to search it up yourself. So the Perplexity module I created was actually an HTTP request tool. So I defined a description. The description just tells the AI agent exactly what the tool is and how it's meant to use it, and also how it's meant to send information in the HTTP request. So I just told it that Perplexity is a web search agent that researches the web in real time to answer your query. Probably agent's not the right word actually, tool. Perplexity is a web search tool that researches the web in real time to answer your query. You should use Perplexity to gather information for each of the news points you choose. And then I made it into a post request, because obviously you're going to send a query to Perplexity to search something up. And then I just defined the query. So you guys should copy exactly this. And then I've just put a placeholder here, query. And basically what this placeholder does is the AI agent puts the request that it wants to send inside this placeholder. So everything else in the body is already defined. The AI agent just puts its query inside there, and then it sends it to the Perplexity tool. So if you guys are downloading the template, there's no need to change any of this. And then a placeholder name, query. As I said, you have to define which part the AI agent is going to be inputting its information into. Query, put the search query in here, string, pretty standard. And in terms of connecting to the Perplexity API, it's actually pretty straightforward. You want to use this URL, api.perplexity.ai/chat/completions. So let me just see if I can open this without sharing my API key. There we go. All right, so I've just quickly removed my API key. But basically once you open it up, this is what you see. You see name and value. And this is basically just a header that's going to be sent through with the post request. What you want to do is write authorization at the top. Underneath it, write bearer space, and then import your API key. Now I'm just gonna, I do not want to save that. Import your API key, and then in terms of finding the API key, it's actually a pretty straightforward process as well. What you'd want to do is just open Perplexity again, click on this little icon here, and then click on API, and generate an API key underneath there. Oh shit, I'm exposing my API key, probably gonna remove that. But yeah, you just basically then copy that API key, come back to the workflow, then just open this, write authorization bearer space API key. Pretty simple stuff. Once you're connected, as I said, just keep this, the body of the request the same as what I've put here, and the query, the placeholder name, and then the AI agent should know exactly how it's meant to use the tool. So if I just run this to show you what will happen, boom, and it's probably going to take a couple of seconds for it to work, because obviously it's going to call on the Perplexity tool 5 times for the 5 news points, because I've taught it to use it once for each of those news points, as opposed to just send the 5 news points in one query. It's going to be a little bit more expensive that way, but I find that if you're writing a newsletter or sending out a newsletter once a week, you're better off spending 50 cents as opposed to spending 1 cent if your newsletter is going to be much higher quality, right? If it was something that was super high volume, like you were sending out 20 newsletters per day, yes, you'd probably want to optimize on cost a lot. But if it's something that's only happening once a week, you're better off paying a little bit of a premium, but actually getting something out that's a lot more high quality. There we go. So let's just wait for this to... There we go. Happy days. So we have the intermediate steps, which is just going to show us what the agent actually did. And then it has the output, and the output is the only thing we care about. The output is just going to be the news titles along with some research that it found from using the Perplexity tool. So if you see inside the intermediate steps, what it basically did is it just queried 5 times using Perplexity. Or query just means like it searched up things 5 separate times. And each of those times it searched something up, it was just searching up information regarding that news point that you wanted to send out in your newsletter. So DeepSeek's AI model overtakes ChatGPT in popularity. That's one of the searches it did. Another one is skills shift required for agentic AI era. That's probably another news point that it chose. OpenAI and SoftBank, and then the potential impact of operator. There we go. So that's pretty straightforward stuff as well. That's the research agent. But as I said, you don't necessarily have to do more research. Technically, probably easier for you to just reword the newsletter that's been aggregated. But if you want to go above and beyond and sound authentic, definitely keep the research agent as it is. All right, so this next part's actually pretty cool. So for my newsletters, I always have a cover image that goes above each news point. So for example, China's DeepSeek app takes over Apple Store. You can see that it says, "Hi, I'm DeepSeek." Straight away, the person looks at that and knows what we're going to be talking about. This one, it's a little bit less obvious. If we look here, how DeepSeek shook US markets by the numbers. DeepSeek's impact on tech market. This one's talking about NVIDIA, because obviously you can see Jensen Huang in his beautiful leather jacket. And then for the next one, you can see it says operator AI in a big, nice neon blue. So as you can obviously tell, having these images inside the newsletter is pretty effective, and it makes your newsletter look much more sophisticated and 10 times better. In order to achieve this, what I did was build a node that's going to search up each of the queries that the agent made, the Perplexity, into Google Images. So for example, let's say, let me just resize this. Let's say, for example, what I have here is the potential impact of operator in business functions, which is one of the queries. If I just copy this and paste it into Google and then go to images, this is the result that comes up, right? So basically what I wanted to do was build a node that's going to be able to do exactly this. So in order to achieve this, I used SERP API. So if you guys don't know what SERP API is just an API that allows you to search on multiple platforms, the main one being Google. It's actually pretty simple to make one. Just search up SERP API on Google and then click on the first link and then just click register, and you're going to make yourself a free account that's going to give you up to 100 executions for free. It's pretty generous. So if we come back to our workflow, I'll just quickly explain how I've set this node up. So obviously it's going to be a GET request, because you're going to get a bunch of information from the search. The URL that I've defined is this one here, serpapi.com/search, and the query is going to be engine is equal to Google Images. And then in terms of the authorization as well, you want to use query authorization, and then you want to just create a new credential. Once you open it up, you want to write API key as the name of the query, and then just pop in your API key in the value section. Pretty simple. So that's going to connect you to SERP API. Then you want to turn on or make sure that send query parameter is going to be turned on. Inside send query parameter, you're going to define the query that you want to send with your HTTP request. The name of the query is going to be Q, and this is basically just defining the actual thing you want to search on Google. And then in terms of what the query is going to be, I've just defined it to be each of the actual queries from the Perplexity app. So to put this in super simple terms, all that we're doing is we're going to be running this node 5 times, which is going to search Google Images 5 individual times. Each time it's going to be regarding one of the news points. So first time it's going to be, let me just show you, OpenAI launches Operator AI agent. The second time it's going to be the potential impact of Operator in business functions. Third one, OpenAI and SoftBank, so on and so forth. So the second query parameter is just GL, and GL stands for geographical location. So it's just where you want to be searching up. And I chose the US because obviously the US is the tech center of the world. There we go. And then we don't need to put any headers or body or any sort of options. So we'll leave that. If I just run this, we'll see what the output's going to be. Cool. So as I said, since we ran the mode 5 times, we're going to have 5 outputs. And each of these outputs is going to be the results that came from searching up that query into Google Images. So then I've just manipulated this data a bit so I can actually extract the URL for the first image that comes up, because I think the first image is usually the most relevant image inside your Google image search. So I'm just going to run these 2 data manipulation fields. There we go. So this would just give me news number 1. And for news number 1, we have the URL of the image. News number 2, we have the URL for the image. News number 3, so on and so forth. So if we just quickly open up the URL of news number 1, we'll see that it's an image about Search GPT. That's regarding the first news point we had. Let's just have a look at news number 4. Boom, .jpeg. Open this up. ChatGPT DeepSeek. Cool. So as you can see, we've just extracted an image from Google Image Search for each of the top news points. Alrighty, now with that, we move to the final component of the newsletter automation, which is where you actually write the newsletter and send it out to your subscribers. Cool. So as you guys can see, we have 2 OpenAI modules and then 1 HTTP module. So the first OpenAI module is just going to create a subject line for the newsletter email that you're sending out. So if we open it up, you can see the prompt that I've used is saying you are part of a team responsible for this week in AI's newsletter. Your task is to come up with a subject line for this week's newsletter email, create a subject line based on the first news point title. So I just told it to use the first news title and create a subject line from that. And then for the second one, I said to create, make sure that the subject line is going to create curiosity in the reader, because that's usually how you can get someone to click. I said to make sure it's maximum 5 words. And I've just given it some other information about how the subject line should look. Cool. So if I just run that to see what the output looks like, you can see that we have, is this AI agent too powerful? ? I actually really like that subject line. Now, to be completely honest, it's not going to come up with the best subject line every single time. But I think this one's actually quite good. Is this AI agent too powerful? Let's just go back. Cool. So the next node is actually the copywriter node, which is obviously going to be responsible for actually writing the actual newsletter itself. So for this, I've used OpenRouter to connect to Claude 3.5 Sonnet. In terms of the prompt that I've written, I wrote that you're a copywriter for this week in AI newsletter. Just gave it some context, gave it a role, gave it some specific instructions, maintain all the important information from the research, write for a year 3 reading level, sound enthusiastic and futuristic, so just defined a writing style. Taught it to impose curiosity, and then I just told it how I want the output to actually look like and what sort of formatting I want it to follow for the output. Now, a really important thing here is if you want to send out emails that are nicely formatted like this with images and hyperlinks, you're going to have to use HTML. Now, for you non-technical people out there, HTML or hypertext markup language is simply just a coding language that's used for web pages inside the internet. And in emails, it's much the same. You want to use HTML to be able to add these hyperlinks and these images, as I just said. Cool. So I told the AI model to give me the output in HTML format. I told it that I want to have citations, which is basically just those hyperlinks that's going to give you a link to go and read more information. And then I have told it an exact format to follow for the newsletter as well. And then I gave it the actual research itself that came from the previous agent. And I also gave it the URLs for each of the news points. So if I quickly just run this, we're going to see the newsletter being created in HTML. Let's see if this works. There we go. Now that's the HTML doc. It says HTML style, blah, 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 blah. So I'd probably recommend just copying this exact prompt, or if you guys are downloading the template, don't change it. And there you go, that's your newsletter created in HTML. Now the final thing you have to do is to actually just send this out to your subscribers. But to be completely frank, if you have a big subscribers list and you have a reputation that you don't want to potentially damage by the AI making mistakes, I would use this output as a draft, as opposed to just sending it out directly to people, so that you can just check the draft, make sure everything looks good, and then send that out once you're happy with it. So to simplify it down, I would keep the human in the loop in this instance. So let's go back to our workflow. Now for my newsletters, I use ConvertKit, just like I showed you guys here. ConvertKit's pretty good. I'd probably recommend using ConvertKit if you guys are just opening up a new newsletter. But I just created a HTTP post node that's going to connect to ConvertKit. Now the URL I used is api.convertkit.com, version 3, broadcasts. And for those of you who aren't familiar with ConvertKit, broadcasts is just how they refer to their newsletters. Cool, so in terms of the authentication, you'd want to create a query auth underneath the generic credential type, and then you would just want to pop in your authentication key as a query. And just to show you guys exactly what you're meant to do, for the name, you put API_key, and for the value, you just pop in your actual API key. So if you guys don't have access to a ConvertKit API key, it's actually pretty easy to get one. So if you just go to your ConvertKit account and you click on settings, you can just basically scroll all the way down, click on developer, and your API key would be right there. So coming back to the workflow, you'd want to toggle send headers to be on. And then for the headers, you want to define two headers. The first one defined as content-type, and that one, the value is going to be application/JSON. And the second header that you want to define, is going to be API_secret. Now, ConvertKit's a bit weird. They have an API key, which is what goes inside the query authentication. And then they also have a API secret, and the API secret you have to put in as a header. Now, I'm pretty sure in the API docs for ConvertKit, they said that you don't need to put down both. So trial it without it, but I haven't honestly trialed it without both. But if you guys also want to get your API secret, it should also be at the same place as your API key. So moving on, you'd also want to toggle your send body to be on, because obviously it's a post request, so it has to have some sort of body or some sort of data that you want to send to ConvertKit. And you're going to define two parameters inside the body of your request. The first one's going to be the subject, which is just the subject line of that specific email newsletter. You're just going to choose it to be the same as what the AI gave you 2 nodes ago. And then for the second parameter, it's going to be the actual content of the newsletter. So you define it as content, and you just pop in the HTML output that the previous node gave you. Cool. So that should be there. If I quickly just test this step to show you guys what will happen. Cool, so as you guys can see, the node executed successfully, so you were able to post a draft of a newsletter or a draft broadcast to your ConvertKit account. And if we quickly just go through the actual output that it shows, so these are the parameters that you could have put inside your body. So there's also a parameter here called send_at, and what send_at defines is when you want to send this newsletter to your subscribers. So it's basically the same as like scheduling the actual newsletter to be sent out. Now, I didn't actually put any values for this attribute, and if you don't put any values like I did, what's going to happen is that ConvertKit is going to create a draft broadcast. So it's not actually going to schedule it or post it or send it out to people. It's just going to create a draft that you can then go check and send if you're happy with it. So if you did want to actually send it out, you just copy the send_at attribute in here, and then you would create a value for it, and the value that you would create would be some sort of time, right? So for example, if you wanted to post it straight away, you would create a JSON variable that just says now, and this is going to be exactly at this very moment it's going to send it off. Now up to you guys if you guys actually want to do this, but as I said, I like to keep the human in the loop and just double check it before I send it out. So I'm going to leave that one up to you. And if we quickly just pop over to ConvertKit, you can see that the draft is actually here now. Is this AI agent too powerful? Just click on it, see what it looks like. Boom, search GPT, OpenAI's amazing new helper, meet operator, cool. It's got some in-text citations, which is pretty cool. Types of decision making, how operators changing the way we work. That's also pretty cool, relevant stuff as well. OpenAI and SoftBank team up for a huge project, pretty cool. You've got a link there, you can go read more if you want. DeepSeek, the new AI star from China. It's also very important news that's currently out there. and new skills for a future with AI friends. And if I quickly just come and show you guys what it looks like in mobile view as well, you can see that it's pretty compatible and it looks pretty good. Boom, there we go, as easy as that. So if I quickly just go back, there's one more thing that I also have to show you guys. Obviously every automation needs a trigger to start the automation. So a trigger node is basically just how and when you want to start the automation. Considering newsletters are something that's sent out periodically, I chose the schedule trigger. And what the schedule trigger basically does is that it just turns on the automation in a specific schedule. So every 2 days, 3 days, week at a certain time or whatever. So it basically just triggers the automation to start at a specific time or within specific intervals. Now I like to send out my newsletters at 8 a.m. on Tuesday mornings. So what I did is I just defined a custom cron and then I just defined it to be 08***2. Now what this 08 defines is what time. So this could be 09, meaning 9 a.m. or it could be 23, meaning 11 p.m. or it could be 01, which is 1 a.m. And then this 2 just defines on what day of the week. So 2 is the second day of the week, Tuesday. If you wanted to do the third day of the week, Wednesday, you just change this to 3. If you wanted to do, I don't know, the 5th day of the week, which I believe should be Friday, you would just do 5 and so on and so forth. So change the first 2 to change the time of the day and then change the last one to change exactly what day you want to send it out. Cool, so that was automating newsletters with n8n AI agents. I hope you guys found this video useful. Don't forget we have a template down in the description below which you guys can literally download and import into your n8n workflow so you don't have to actually build anything from scratch. Like always, I'd appreciate if you guys like and subscribe, and thanks for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one.